And this evening, our topic is Beyond the Webcam, the audio and video streaming 101 for clergy and lay ministers. So it is an absolute pleasure to welcome the Reverend Colin Chapman to the Digital Mission for our discussion tonight. Thank you, Colin, for being here.
I am very happy to be here and be with you all. So as I want to kind of talk about what we're going to talk about tonight, and there's some flexibility too, based on where you all are. I kind of got a good idea, a better idea of what you're all looking for, and I can tailor our conversation for that. As you know, when talking about technology, I could talk about a webcam to a kindergartner differently than I talk to about a webcam to someone who's kind of into audio video production. There's a good chance that some of you maybe have kind of the kindergarten level understanding of a webcam. I'm just using that as an example, right? So I want to kind of aim somewhere towards the lower middle. If you don't know something, raise your hand. And if you, if I'm kind of going too slow for the whole crowd, just kind of, we can speak up and kind of go from there. You'll notice that I'm kind of doing something fancy with my screen at the moment, where I'm having a slide in a video. It would be helpful if you're on speaker view as I'm kind of presenting some of this, and when I go back to full screen, go for it. I kind of go back, but I just kind of have some slides and some guidance. But real quick tonight, we've already kind of done intros and hellos, so I want to talk a little bit about myself quickly. Then we're going to go through kind of your church streaming checklist, the basics that you should be thinking about as we continue this conversation, because without a roadmap forward, there's a lot of paths you could go down, expensive paths, time-consuming paths. So I want to make sure we kind of talk about the checklist first. And then the bulk of where we're going to be tonight is real quick audio visual basics, things that you want to know about these tools before moving forward, and then some question and answer there at the end. My shirt is like a magic eye. Do you see that in your camera? I would have not worn this shirt for this meeting. This is terrible.
Yes, it is a magic eye.
I'm glad it's recorded. Thank goodness for perpetuity. So real quick, just about me, I'm the rector at St. Peter's here in Londonderry. The bulk of my knowledge and what we're talking about is that I come from the church side of things, but I'm also, and I kind of put in quotes, a lifelong hobbyist. I'm young enough that this is kind of, I was taking apart computers in my garage when I was 10 or 11 that my dad would get from work. And I love this stuff. But to the last point you see on screen, I'm really just a hobbyist. I'm someone who does this for fun. I get a lot of energy around this conversation. And I do this at home when it's not the middle of a pandemic. But I'm not an expert. So there's a good chance you folks may know things that I don't know. Correct me if I say something wrong. And there's a great chance that you're going to ask me a question tonight that I don't know the answer to. And we'll get back to it. That's my disclaimer. Now, going back, I want to talk a little bit about your streaming checklist. I, as the hobbyist, love this stuff. This is the evolution of the toy for me as a child. These are grown-up toys. I will get lost in the toyness of it. I don't know if any of you are in that boat, There's a chance if you're here willingly, maybe you are. If you're here as more of a novice, maybe that sounds like something I should talk to a therapist about, and it probably is. The reason it's an important distinction to make is that as churchy folk, the shiny, flashy technology should never outweigh our mission. This is a question for you and your regathering team, or your technology team, your vestry, right? Why are you streaming? I think Dave pointed out rightfully at the top that this is the future, this is where we need to be, and he's probably right. That being said, a stream is not going to save the church, your church. It's a lot like a church website. And I think moving forward in the next 5 to 10 years, it's really going to be like the church website. In a sense, you need it. It's going to give folks a taste of what you do, but it's not the center of your mission. And right now, the transition into hybrid feels that way, kind of central. But as we progress, particularly once we're back indoors, this is going to be something that we may forget about, but will need tending to, just like your website. I pride myself on getting this stream at St. Peter's Church looking professional and good. Please don't go to our website. It's been forgotten. So, one day this too will be forgotten. It doesn't make it any less important. Then the question we need to ask ourselves is, who is our audience? This is a very complicated question today. Here, I'm going to, this is a very complicated question today. Did I just go back? I did, yeah. Give me one moment. Here we go. Complicated question today, because right now, our audience is the whole church, right? It's everyone who's not in our buildings. And for many of us, that's everyone. Is anyone doing any sort of indoor hybrid yet? I know we have some outdoor going on, but no one's back indoors. Has anyone, Hopkinton, you're back indoors, Randy?
Not fully, but we have had some hybrid services.
Nice, great. So the more we go back into being in person together, the less the audience for this is going to become. So it's important to ask ourselves, who are we doing this for? The reason that's important, missionally, is there's a big difference when this is 100% of your congregation. And we worshiped outside at St. Peter's on Sunday. 40 people came outside, and they're about the same folks who come to Zoom every week. 4 people were on Zoom, right? So 10% of the audience congregation, excuse me, was on Zoom. So, right, the importance of this kind of starts to show itself. And the trouble is right now we don't know what our congregation who's streaming is going to look like in 3 months, in 6 months, in a year. So these are murky waters that's going to require some flexibility on our part. And then the last thing we need to look at is what are you going to use to stream? And that's the bulk of where we're going to spend our conversation today. But I don't know if anyone would object to this line of thought, but this is the path. We understand our mission and who our mission is to. And then once you have an idea of those answers, we could then look at the tools we're going to use. That being said, time for a good pause. Does anyone have a kind of regathering group in their congregation, or kind of a church technology group that's already looking at these questions? And if so, maybe you want to share how that kind of how you put that together, what the formation of that looked like. You can just unmute yourself and talk. We don't need to raise hands.
We have what's called an adapted worship team that's put together
Mm-hmm.
at St. Andrews in Hopkinton, and myself and some other folks that are very much into technology are on that group. Plus, we have I think representatives from the from music and from the vestry. So we're all talking about when we're going to come back. We've already done some hybrid stuff at Easter. So we have a pretty good group going. And like I said, we're fortunate to have a couple members that are very much into the audio visual portions of this.
Great. Does anyone else have a team like that assembled?
Nothing like that. I have a couple of guys that are, and we got a Hope grant. So we one of them took charge of buying some equipment and having it installed and getting us connected. We didn't even have a, what do you call it? Not a website, we do, but Wi-Fi in the church. I mean, we just got that.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking, kind of primitive here, but we've been doing Zoom services, and I will be doing an outdoor service, very limited, in this month.
Great. Great.
Miriam, could you just say what a Hope grant is for those who might not know?
That was a grant offered by the diocese through Mission Resources.
Mm.
And I think the top grant you could get was $3,000.
Mm-hmm.
We got our two guys working together and came up with a list of what we needed, or at least what they think we needed. And we submitted that after we were awarded a grant, and we get reimbursed for what we've spent. It's under $3,000 for us.
Thank you.
Great, great. Yeah, I know that there's been a lot of the Hope grant has kind of gone a long way. And I think people are really excited about it. And I think if you haven't yet applied for that, is anyone here just hearing about that? Good. Oh. That's good. So I'm glad everyone's had a chance to kind of take a look at it. If you don't have a lot of the tools in this conversation today, that's free money, and you should take a look at it. So before we get into the nitty gritty, I wanted to share for you, and I think some of my clergy colleagues may be tired of hearing this kind of soapbox from me. I know my kind of peers are the ones I kind of chat to on a regular basis. But I wanted to kind of present my central thesis on kind of why some of this matters and why some of it does not matter. Many of us may remember whenever the conversation was in your congregations about whether or not we should record or upload or make available the sermons on a Sunday, or even the whole service, if that's what your church does. Not 10 years ago when I joined my first parish, there was this sense of kind of a phobia around putting the sermon online, with a fear that if we put the sermon online, are people going to stop coming to church? I think that says a lot about how we think about our own preaching. Different story. But that same kind of fear is popping up again on whether or not putting our church service on a Sunday is going to somehow impact attendance or people coming into our buildings. So I do want to share my screen. Do I not, can I not share? Do I have share screen privileges? Oh, sorry.
You
Nope.
are a co-host,
I
so
do.
you should.
My computer is yelling at me to change a setting. My computer went to the shop last week and really threw me for a loop. So all of my settings are gone, which is a real bummer. So let's see, now can I share my screen? There we go. So I want to share this with you all. You should see YouTube on your screen. Do you see YouTube? And further on your screen, not only should you see YouTube, but you should also see YouTube. See what I did there? I don't know our audience here. YouTube for me is a religious experience. I've seen them many times. And because it's such a religious experience, when one sees them live, and I'm not alone, go online, it's all over the place. Anyway, whatever. It's the feeling of a church, and watching church reminds me a lot of when it comes to watching YouTube. So I just kind of wanted to play a quick clip from YouTube. This is a bootleg, right? This is like a handy cam version of YouTube. Hopefully you hear it. Do you hear it?
No.
You can't hear it.
No sound.
For reason I shared my screen. What a bummer. Well, anyway, you kind of get the idea, right? This is a handheld camera in the middle of an arena. As a fan, I'll watch this gladly, right? Or particularly listen to it. I love listening to these concerts. If you want to watch YouTube, this is one way to do it. But there's also, you can watch them this way. Same concert, same tour. You have a real camera, you have a tripod. This is better than the alternative, right? Neither one is better than the real thing. That was a YouTube joke. No one? Right, whatever. But you kind of get the idea. Knowing that something is better than nothing, right? You could watch the old Handycam bootleg, but you'd rather watch this. You'd rather be in person, right? Keep that in mind as you're kind of preying on and having these conversations with your church. You're never going to have YouTube level streaming, right? That's just not expected. But you want it to look as good as can be, knowing that it's never going to fully scratch the itch of the people who want to be in your building. And I think allowing ourselves to be okay with that limitation helps us with that conversation moving forward. It's okay that this doesn't feel the way church feels. It's not supposed to, and it never can. But it does help those who can't be in the building experience the Eucharist or your sermon or Bono, whatever it may be, right? All right, enough about YouTube. I want to talk about audio and video tonight specifically. And I want to talk a bit about the basics. We're going to go back to, we are on OBS, great. Right now, I'm talking to you on a webcam. It's an external webcam. It's a 1080p Logitech webcam, impossible to find this time last year with the pandemic kind of starting. You can find them now. You'll see that the quality looks okay. Many of you are talking to me tonight on a computer, or maybe your like MacBook webcam or your computer. I want to put these side by side for you. That's my webcam. One webcam is blocking the other, right? What you see now are two different webcams, right? The one on the left, lower quality, that's the built-in webcam of the computer. That's probably what a lot of folks are using on their Zoom calls, either right now. It's what the bishop was using until I we begged him, please, Bishop, use something nicer. And on the right, that's just a straight 1080p webcam. Already you can see how just a $100 device goes a long way. We are going to, here, I'm going to go black for a second, heads up. I'm going to go to my not so nice webcam so I can show you the nicer webcam. You'll notice nicer webcams have this little kind of hole on the bottom here. That's for a tripod. Kind of bare bones basic. This, you kind of see the video quality, right? It's going back to where we were. That's Bono, that's me. Here we are. The video quality is okay. It's never going to improve the look of the subject matter. Hello. But it does the trick. $100, put that on a tripod, you're good to go. Once you kind of leave that field, there are a lot of different options out there, anywhere from $100, like a webcam, or you can start looking at the $200, $300, $2,000 variety. I want to kind of show you a few kind of thoughts, particularly, I kind of know it's interesting kind of looking at this group here. There's a huge kind of coverage of the size and kind of economic capabilities of parishes here, right? We don't all have Peterborough money, Jamie, but we can make do, right? I do want to show you one device that's, if you find yourself not having Peterborough money, I don't mean to pick on you, Jamie. It's not even fair when you're muted either. I want to go back to, nope, that's me. There we go. This is called the Mevo. It's $350. If you're looking to kind of go one step up from a webcam, this is the place, this is where to start. This is all wireless. It's wirelessly streams to your computer or even straight to YouTube or however you're streaming. It's controlled wirelessly by your phone. The setup's controlled by your phone. It's actually a super neat device. And as you see in the picture here, it just sits on a tripod or a mic camera, a mic stand. It's getting late. So you can have this sitting in your church. You can even move it around. It's going to give you, oh good, what did we, I lost my thing. So this is, totally lost my train of thought. Celeste, you left a nice chat text in the chat, and suddenly, instantly, I appreciated Bishop Rob being able to juggle talking and while reading the chat all the more. Incredible. I lost, so the Mevo, good place to start. $300. You can even actually get 2 of these and kind of set them up in strategic locations in your church. Maybe one wider shot, one closer to the lector, whatever you want it. Interesting place to start. There we go. Has anyone used something like this or kind of seen it in their context? Yeah, it's worth looking at. I was actually I've read about them quite a bit. I got to play with one today. Very excited. So it's worth looking at if you kind of only have a little bit of finances to kind of start that service if you need to move from currently streaming on your webcam. I'm gonna go Jamie, yeah.
Do you just push go and it just films? Do you need somebody to be manning it?
You do need, it is helpful to have someone on the camera.
Mm-hmm.
You can have kind of set it and forget it, but you maybe because what's neat about the Mevo is there's a wide shot, but then you can kind of say, here, focus on this part of the screen,
Uh-huh.
or focus on this part of the screen just by touching your cell phone. And then also program, if you wanted to just put it in one location, you can just kind of have it zoom in and out. So
By
you can have
your
someone
phone.
control that.
By the
Yeah,
phone. And
by the
then,
phone.
and then do you need to then upload it on YouTube?
It depends. If you're streaming directly to YouTube, at the end of the service, that video is in YouTube forever
Okay.
until you
And
take it
then
down.
so you need internet in the church to be able to, or if your phone has good service.
That's it. You can use your phone, although when you start using your phone as your primary data source, you start looking at like data caps, particularly
Yeah,
most data caps, you have quite a bit for downloading, but when you're streaming, you're uploading,
yeah,
right? So I know that, you and I have talked about the
Yeah.
internet situation in Peterborough.
okay.
I guess the grass is always greener. So, but when we're talking about Mevo, I want to kind of, for a second, talk about resolution. Right now, I'm recording on a 1080p webcam. You may have heard, has anyone heard that phrase 1080p when looking at things? Oftentimes you'll hear 720 or 1080 or even 4K. This is kind of if I'm talking low, I apologize. Those numbers represent how many dots are across the horizontal line of your image. The more dots you have, the clearer your image is going to be. The best example I can give you is think about the little Mario, like the first Mario back in like the 80s on the Nintendo. He was made of little squares. If you stretched that Mario, those 32 squares that he was comprised of doesn't automatically become however many squares. It's that it's going to become blurrier because there's only that many squares to use. So if you have 720 squares and you stretch the squares, where's my arm? I'm going to go over that way. You stretch the squares to a bigger screen, you still only have 720 squares over the course of a larger screen. That's what all those numbers mean. The issue with the Mevo, and it's only an issue if it matters, right? Go back to you too. It's not going to look like no one here is the Cathedral of St. John the Divine. What I'm going to do here, I'm actually going to stretch myself. Oh boy, that's not good. You can see now that this is no longer a clear image. That's because I took and I think I'm only starting at 720 dots, right? I took those 720 dots and I stretched them. So now those dots you actually kind of see the dots. And the computer does a lot of work to make it blurry and try to make it better. But the more you stretch an image, the blurrier it's going to become. Well, that's too much me. Let's go back. Let's go back to less me, right? So when you have something like a webcam or a Mevo, or even you've noticed this with your iPhone, which is an easy way just to go back. There may be. You may have noticed this with your iPhone. Has anyone taken pictures with their iPhone and kind of, while you're taking a picture, kind of stretched your fingers and all of a sudden it looks blurry? That's what's happening because you're not actually zooming in. You're just taking that image and stretching it. The Mevo can zoom, but it's only going to stretch. If you go up from the $350 range to the, nope, I should have labeled my scenes, there we go. And you wanna go to the, $2,000 range, one option in your congregation are these PTZ cameras. PTZ stands for pan, tilt, and zoom. Those are the directions this camera can sit. So oftentimes you'll see this camera sits in, I'm having a hard time moving my window. Oh, because it's over there. There we go. Sits in the back of the church, and it actually has an optical zoom. So it's not just stretching the pictures, but it's like the camera's moving forward. So you're going to have a better image. These PTZ cameras does essentially what that Mevo does, in the sense that you can say, this is the location of the lectern, this is the location of the altar. I'm going to push a button and it's going to kind of cut between those scenes. It's going to give you higher quality, but it's going to give you more pictures, more dots, right? More pixels. Those are your kind of your two extremes. There's a lot of options along the way. One of the best options, go back to me. One of the best options out there, and I want to grab it to show you. Give me just 1 second. I'm stepping away. Alana, I'm so glad we're recording this. This is great. So a middle geared option is, and this is kind of surprises me, is your standard point and shoot camera, right? The cameras that you kind of would never think about buying because you have an iPhone and who wants to carry around a real camera with them anymore. These cameras do have an incredible recording capability because they have these, my camera's over here, these big stinking lenses on them. So you're able to actually zoom now, not remotely like your PTZ camera, but this is a $500 camera purchased with a Hope grant, thank you, instead of a $2,000 camera. This is where I want to kind of get into one more kind of video basic before we kind of move on. If I say the words, the letters really, HDMI and USB, have we heard at least that stuff thrown around before? HDMI and USB. Those are kind of your two major kind of connection languages that your cameras are going to use. Your computer may or may not have a HDMI out port, but it probably doesn't have an HDMI in port. These lovely cameras were not meant to be webcams, right? They were meant to be lovely. I want to get a cable for you all. They were meant to be cameras that photographers would use along the way, and something that, you know, grandparents would record videos of their with their kids. Many people on your computer may have like something like iMovie where it edits this footage. There's software that takes this file, puts it into iMovie, then you are able to make the edits, then you have to spend some time putting it out of iMovie. Mm-hmm. That's because the file in here isn't in the same language as your computer. So when you start shooting video with something like this, you need something between your computer and the camera that's going to do the in-time computation between this image and what you're going to see on Zoom. There's a few options out there, but I want to point you in the direction of one of them, because if you're only going to use one camera for your church stream, one of the least expensive, one of the less financially burdensome options is to go with something like this. And then this is a really kind of funky dongle. It's $125, but on one side it's actually an HDMI, and on the other is USB. And so this has a little computer inside and does all the heavy lifting to get this image into your computer as a webcam. So if you're on Zoom or YouTube, you're then able to just set your video for this thing, and it has really gorgeous quality up to 4K, right? 4,000 dots across your screen. The more dots you put onto the internet, the better your internet needs to be to get it there. So you probably don't need to go that high, but you can with one of these. We could be here for hours explaining all the ways to get this kind of camera onto your computer. There's a lot of options out there.
At St. Andrews, that's what we use. We have
You use the...
Yes, a similar type of device with a camera.
Yeah, great. And probably pretty good quality too, right?
It is. It's very good quality. The camera is up to 4K.
Yeah, right. And when you're filming something as gorgeous as Reed Loy, I mean, it doesn't matter what camera you have; it's going to look great, right? But this is going to help. It helps me.
So can I ask a quick question? So you got
Please
that
do, yeah.
you got that camera, you're streaming the service, right? In real time. Then you put in the port. Does that automatically transfer it to a YouTube, or do you have to make an iMovie? Is this live? All of this live?
This is live. When we use this camera on a Sunday, it's as live as you and I are right now.
So why do you need this other port? The other thing that you
this thing?
Yeah.
This is what allows this to be live.
Okay. Okay.
Right. You need, this is going to do the computational work
to get it onto
off
YouTube.
of your computer, to get it onto your computer, to then, because you need something to get it into YouTube, right? Whether you're using YouTube directly or other third-party software.
So
to do
this is a connection between the camera and your computer.
Correct.
The small thing in my hand is, yes, most certainly. I kind of want to. Here we go. Now I have what I need. So yeah, so this really just kind of plugs into, if you have a Mac, you need an adapter.
Yeah.
Or something. But so there you go.
Okay.
The other option is to have a camera that just has direct USB, right? And USB looks like your standard kind of webcam, that flat button. I'm going to go back to ugly Colin here for a minute and kind of here. So you all know, like, right, this is just your straight USB. If your camera has this on it already, you don't need to worry about the dongle guy. This is called a cam link. And I can, if anyone's interested in more, I can kind of send more information about this. But so you have your USB or your HDMI, this is what your TV, your DVD player, a lot of things will use this, right? Now, the problem with the limitation with these cameras versus the PTZ is they don't have a remote control. So you're kind of stuck. If you want to have multiple locations, you're going to need to have someone do that for you, on a Sunday or whatever that may be. So I want to shift now to talk a little bit more about audio. This is, we're talking big picture kind of topics, and then we want to get to Q&A too. But are we ready to move on from video, or does anyone else have any other kind of conversation, any other thoughts on video?
No, I have a quick question. So
yeah, great.
If you have a PTZ and you've got the Zoom and the back, and don't you have to have, and it's connected to your computer, do you have to have some software that translates when to make those moves? Like,
yeah. Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So that
And
somebody
so-
can just hit push or something and then,
Mhm.
because we don't have anybody who's really going to be able, I mean, we have to have it as user friendly as possible.
Right. So that's a good time to address that barrier, the how do we get others to get involved. I know at St. Peter's, we could probably do more with audio and video, but the limitation, I'm the one who kind of drives the ship. And so there's always a balance for me. How complicated
Yeah.
can I make it without getting so complicated that I can't sit someone down in front of a computer and do it? One option for all of this is to kind of talk to, if you have if there's consultants or there's firms out there who can give you a quote and put all this in your church together, often will give someone some training. If you get training in those tools, it then becomes the responsibility of that person. And I hope it's not the rector, but if it is, you then need to train whomever else to use it on a Sunday. The nice thing about all of these tools is that the setup is far and away the most complicated piece. Once it's set up and it's running, how to kind of push the right buttons to make the camera here versus over here is much easier. And so as someone learns how to do that, they then kind of share that information with the team. So that's something that I find out here is that starting next week, we have a group of digital ushers. And these are folks who I'm going to sit down with and kind of not show them how to set up the gear on a Sunday and not show them how to connect everything, but how to push, what buttons to push and when.
Yeah.
It's kind of helpful. I'm not shortchanging kind of high school students, but this is the kind of stuff that, high school kids learn in their, the drama clubs or their stage groups. It's super intimidating when we first see it, because first there's a barrier of touch. What buttons do I push when? And then this was a great perspective Alana shared with me earlier. There's that fear of like, oh my God, what if I mess it up? Like, what if I start streaming the preacher's foot instead of the sermon? If that happens, you have one bad week, right? Like, that's okay too. And so that's part of the kind of the pastoral massaging of the team, right? Good question though, and that's up to your leadership abilities or whomever's in charge of this group, if you're not a clergy person, to kind of usher in that in a helpful way, just as you would in any other new ministry. Can we jump to recording? Audio? Great.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Great. Give me one quick sec. I want to I apologize. So audio is the next step, and video is really kind of binary, right? You have a camera that's on or a camera that's off, and the quality of the camera far and away is how high of a quality your recording is going to be. Hi, Sue. Welcome. Oh, you have earbuds in. I didn't know. That's funny. Sorry, Kirsten. Hi, Sue. Audio is when it gets a little trickier because there's so many more points of error in audio. You can have the nicest microphone, but if you're recording in a giant stone building with large ceilings, it's not going to sound as nice as if you're recording with a high-end microphone in a padded room. So right now I'm talking to you on Zoom, but I'm using my AirPod Pros that I use with my headphones, my phone most of the time. I have these in my ear for almost every Zoom meeting. And what it is, it's a microphone that's pretty close to my mouth. For example, I'm going to switch my microphone here to just my built-in webcam. Can you hear the difference now between my built-in webcam and my earbuds? Going back now. It's pretty considerable difference. Keep that in mind as you kind of climb the audio scale. I've personally been burned at home, not really trying to get the best audio possible. I'm a bit of an audiophile, and a while back, I still am, got into vinyl records, and it's a black hole trying to get something to sound as good as our ears, and it's not nearly impossible. But there are some things that we can do to make our church's recordings sound better. I'm gonna load something up for you.
While you're doing that, those things in your ear, what are they called?
The thing in my ear here is they're called the AirPod, specifically AirPod Pro. They work really well with an iPhone. You can use it with an Android phone, but it's just a Bluetooth wireless earbud. But it's Apple, you're paying a little extra for some science magic, but they kind of make the sound and the noise cancellation really nice. Going to go back to the web for a second. If you're simply recording on a webcam or a computer, there are options out there. Oh, I'm on the wrong. Here we go. You can get lavalier lapel mics that plug either directly into your iPhone or directly into your computer. So something like this. This is a wireless microphone, and you see here that looks like your standard kind of headphone jack, right? It's called a 1/8 inch or a 35 millimeter jack. Your computer probably has one of these. Your cell phone probably does not, because cell phone companies have worked really hard to get rid of them to make their phones as small as possible. But if you're still lucky enough to have a phone with a jack like that, that's one option for capturing audio. So if it's just you, you can have one of these that are, semi-wireless, plugged into your whatever device you're using to stream. Then of course, that I'm using a second monitor here, and so I will lose the mouse on the monitor when I try to bring it over, because I'm still watching the monitor on Zoom with you all. They also then, if you're looking for something slightly higher quality than these, these all go for somewhere between, $50. Again, better than absolutely nothing, right? It's better than your webcam capturing that big echoey room. If you're looking at spending more money on your sound, you can get something like this. This is a true wireless microphone. It's $300 instead of $50, but it's going to sound super clean. We have one of these from the Hope Grant, and I use it personally, and we have another mic on the lectern and the altar, but it sounds incredible. Now, once you start getting into microphones of this variety, you're no longer looking at your 1/8 inch port. You're looking at something that looks like this. I'm not looking at Zoom. Has anyone kind of seen cables that look like this? These are called XLR is the name of these cables. They plug into amplifiers or kind of amplification systems. These obviously do not plug in directly to your computer. Devices that use this are going to more than likely have a higher quality than something wireless or something that just plugs into your phone for $50. But then you need to start figuring out how you're going to get this into your computer. Some churches, if you already have a sound system in your building, if you already have speakers, chances are you already have a sound board that your mics are plugging into. So you may not need to see these ever. You might have a sound. Does anyone have an amplification system in their building? You do there in Tamsworth? You're lucky once you get there, because then it's much easier to get the sound from a soundboard into your computer. There's a variety of cables that do that job. But if you're looking at using microphones like this, or kind of your standard handheld microphone, you're going to need an interface, something like this. This here is what's called, oh, it's very dark. It's called a USB. Let me see if I move the camera over here. Here we go. This is called a USB interface. And this box will take these cables here and you plug it into your box and the other end into your microphone. And again, it's kind of like the computer situation where these mics weren't made. These are not digital mics. They're actually analog. There's little, you know how microphones work. There's a little kind of filter in there that moves faster than we can perceive and records that image and sends it into an electric wave. So you need something to get it from the analog mic, believe it or not, onto your computer. So these USB interfaces do the trick.
Colin, I feel like showing that mic is like your podcast cred. Like,
wait, this is my podcast mic. This is what I use.
Yeah.
This is what I use to record the
like
podcast.
He's professional with the podcast.
No, right, but I mean, it's the first one I had. But you can. This is what we use on Sundays at the. You know, this is just the Shure SM58. It's your standard $100. Here's my mic, my camera. $100 microphone. Just like video, we could spend hours kind of talking about the difference between. These are actually not the same kind of microphones. They get very complicated and really yucky, but you'll be able to hear. I'm going to switch now to.
So now it should sound different, maybe a little cleaner than the wireless one. I'm not sure, hopefully. Yeah, I think it's on. Is it working? I don't know, I can't.
It is.
Good, okay, thanks, Alana. So what kind of mic? Oh, I feel so silly holding this in my hand. Go back to.
So what kind of mic is something you want to think about as well? this is why the roadmap conversation becomes so important ahead of time. You could easily spend upwards to $5,000, $10,000, right, on audio video for your church. So you need to know the why and the who. The why is missional, right? We do this because your message on a Sunday deserves to be heard, and there's people in your congregation who are homebound and will always be homebound outside of the pandemic, right? There's always going to be people who want to be a part of your service. This is evangelism. But knowing the who helps you understand the need of this technology. We're never going to be U2. We're never going to be the Cathedral of St. John the Divine. But you need to find where on that quality ladder your congregation wants to be. If you can get away with a webcam on a stick and a wireless mic plugged into a computer, that's a lot better than nothing. If you can apply for a Hope grant and get yourself, a quality camera that you can plug into your computer and a USB interface and a microphone, that's the next step too. If you have the means and even the building, right, to get one of the fancy PTZ cameras, the pan tilt zoom, hook it in the back of your church, you're going to have something there as well. So you need to know your own levels. That's a real quick and dirty audio video. Inputs on video matter just like they do audio. HDMI to USB, how you're going to get it into your computer. And just like with audio, you have things like your XLR or your 335 millimeter jack, or even some audio is USB 2. But getting it to your computer is always going to be the challenge. Once you get it to your computer, and this isn't, beyond the webcam basics, then you're looking at what software to use to generate your stream. I want to quickly touch base in this realm here, because what you use will have an impact on how you share your message. Zoom, God bless it for saving our congregations in the last year, was never meant to be much more than an online meeting tool. So we're able to stretch the bounds of Zoom using other technology to have, more than one camera, different audio sources. We're sharing screens, we're doing a lot with it. And sometimes we stretch Zoom past what it's meant to be. When you're pushing out to something like a YouTube, or if you're going directly to YouTube or Vimeo or Facebook, there's a lot of software out there that will let you kind of shape the video experience. Tonight, I've been using a tool called OBS. It stands for Open Source Broadcast Software. It's open source, so it's free. It's ugly, the software. It doesn't look user-friendly, but if you have kind of a tech person in your vicinity that is willing to kind of give it a shot, it lets you do things like I've been doing tonight, kind of switching between different cameras, different videos, sources, instead of doing, we've all been on Zoom calls, right? Where there's someone having having to drag in a screen share and all that, right? It wasn't even so clean tonight. And this pushes directly to Zoom. There's other software out there too, maybe to talk about it another time, but know that if you're going down this road, you may want to explore with your group, kind of looking into OBS as a way to kind of produce your content. It lets you do a lot. You can have, where are you, OBS? You can have kind of graphic overlays on your here, pictures, video, stills. So I would feel like I would be remiss if I didn't share with you just at least knowing the term OBS, so you can kind of explore that on your own, or maybe that's another classroom. It won't be next month's classroom, but that software is really helpful.
What is it again? Open source, what?
OBS, and I can link it in the notes in the chat. It stands for Open Source Broadcast Software. And it really is, it's used by, it's not, I feel the need to kind of, that's not a web link. I need to go to the how to copy and paste class. Get this into the chat. So it's software that looks like this, and you have control of your audio and your video all in one place. Whereas right now on Zoom, you kind of have to toggle everything. Requires a little bit more legwork, but it's a great tool for particularly if your congregation is looking at, I know this may sound wild at some point, but if you want 2 cameras, this is wonderful for managing 2 cameras. Or if you ever need to demonstrate how one camera is good and one camera is bad, you can do that too. Go back here. Cool. So OBS. So that's what I wanted to kind of share tonight. My concern is that I've given you just enough to completely overwhelm you. And that's okay. It's not overwhelming forever, but it is a lot, particularly when you start looking at all of the different HDMI, USB. Carolyn, I'm going to tell one quick second, Carolyn. The last suggestion I'll leave with you kind of on a technical piece. Most of the time, my information comes from typing in literal questions into YouTube. So if I have a question like, how do I connect my Canon M200 to my Mac, I literally type into YouTube, how do I connect my Canon, whatever. And there's videos that will answer your question. It sounds strange if you're not used to using YouTube in that way. Sometimes we just kind of type in like fluffy kittens and go. But YouTube is an incredible learning tool to kind of help you understand some of this too. There's a lot of really helpful videos out there. So yeah, Carolyn, you had a question.
Yeah, just checking with the, again, when we moved to hybrid services and the audio system, I mean, the camera's pretty straightforward. We had gotten a wide angle camera, and it'll just plug into the computer. But when you get into the audio, that's where it gets, sort of trickier. And I didn't know quite like when you have people in the church, you're going to be at the altar, you're going to have people at the podium. I guess, we have one guy strung up this small portable or small microphone from the ceiling. I'm not quite sure how well that will work to be able to pick up the sounds of all that's going into the church, so that again, those on Zoom will be able to hear everything. That's something we'll be, when we go indoors, we'll be trying with. I am kind of concerned about it, because the farther you are from any microphone, the the harder it is to do it. So you've got these different vantage points. So you're going to have lectors coming up to the lectern. You're going to have me at the lectern, having me at the altar, and then you got the choir over there. And so the way to do sound, so that while you have people on Zoom, they'll be able to clearly hear everything. Just any tips on that, so you don't have. And the other tricky thing we had is realizing, you start getting tripods and webcams, and then you're getting wires going all over the place. And then you have people coming up to the altar, and then there's that whole movement. Without people tripping over wires and stuff. So I don't know, any just words of wisdom or things to bear in mind, because I think a lot of people are going to be talking about how do we do this as a hybrid service, especially the audio piece, because the camera's pretty.
So the audio piece is actually a little easier than the video piece when it comes to the kind of hiding those cables. For instance, an HDMI cable has a limit of 50 feet. Once you pass 50 feet with an HDMI cable, you need to start kind of using other tools to extend it. And there's tools out there, but it's not so easy. These XLR cables that I pointed out can extend, I think it's 400 feet on their own, and they plug into each other. So if you have one, you have another. So you can feasibly connect one to your microphone at your lectern and kind of run a cable around the edge of your room or up through the ceiling. There are audio professionals who do that kind of thing. But that's an option. The other option is wireless audio. Wireless is always going to not sound as good as a wired connection, kind of pound dollar for dollar, right? These probably sound better than a $25 wired microphone. But if you're going to, $100 wired microphone is going to sound better than a $100 wireless microphone. That being said, kind of the thing that I showed you on YouTube before, this video is just going to be me cycling through my my slides here. These are an option. They're not inexpensive, but you can kind of see this here, this Shure model. There's 2 microphones for $550. That is an option if you have access to something like the Hope Grant, or if you have a gift or someone kind of funding this transition. You can use those microphones. Then you can have one at the kind of at the altar, and then maybe one for the preacher, or you can kind of figure it out. Currently at St. Peter's, we've run into that exact same kind of, how are we going to make this look nice once we get in person? And we don't have an answer for that yet, but it's a real question. I mean, the answer is spend more money, but no one wants that. Any other kind of questions, and maybe questions that you came into this meeting with that you wanted covered and wasn't, or a question that came up as we kind of had this 10,000 foot view of these tools that, yeah, Carolyn.
Colin, we have a soundboard that our microphones in the church are connected to. And if I connect my computer to that same soundboard, then I'm going to get the audio quality of the sound system through the computer.
In theory, yeah, without knowing it specifically, but yeah, that's kind of your best case, and a lot of churches have that because churches with amplifiers kind of already have that built in.
Right. So that's great. I just need to figure out how to do that. And I think I have somebody who can do that for me.
Yeah, if you have that. Now it gets a little tricky depending on the age of the board.
It's new.
What you have. Oh, nice. There you go.
Yeah.
We have an outdoor speaker that has audio in. You have your XLR cables in. And and then audio out. So when we're outside, it's very easy to get sound from our outdoor speaker into however we stream. So lucky you for the, this also makes it really easy for recording sermons. If before streaming was a dream, it's a lot easier to record homilies or sermons when you have a soundboard already.
Great. Well, thank you. That's exciting to know.
Yeah. Any other questions?
One dumb one.
No such thing, but yeah.
I mean, right now I've been recording services and then posting it on our Facebook page. So to do that on, but I guess you have to have a Facebook account. So to do that on YouTube, I've never used YouTube to post a recorded video. So you record the service. I mean, do you set up and maybe I can just Google how to do that.
Yeah.
So that people can find a service on YouTube instead of having only on Facebook.
It's not dramatically different than uploading to Facebook. And honestly, I find uploading to YouTube a lot easier than upload Facebook. They change it every darn week. How to do it. This is our YouTube. And so yeah, we have our services here, and it's worth, I'm only going to click on one, not to kind of come on, oops. I do want to display, I clicked on the wrong one. There we go. So this is a service that we use with our cameras, and this is all done through OBS. And so so you can kind of see the quality of the video camera is what we have here. And it runs through OBS, so we're able to use kind of some, trying to find here. You can kind of see here, there's some kind of picture-in-picture stuff going on too. That's all controlled on a computer that's off, the computer that I'm using right now. And so you kind of get an idea of what you can do. And these cameras are nice, so it's a good image. If you've been to St. Peter's before, though, you may notice that our altar is not typically in the middle of the room. It's in the back, and I can kind of just quickly, it's all the way in the back, because on Sundays we have this light shining into the back, which is very challenging to record into. We've since moved back into that, but lighting is a challenge. So some churches are too dark, and some churches like ours are just too bright. But we're getting there. So YouTube, so you can easily upload to YouTube every time. Part of the challenge with YouTube is there's kind of ads on it. I hear from time to time. There's other services out there, like I mentioned Vimeo a few times. Vimeo is a paid service that you'll give your congregation an ad-free experience. There's no perfect option, right? And really, no matter what option you're using, you're going to support, you're supporting some kind of mega conglomerate anyway, whether it be Facebook or YouTube or Google. But it is helpful to have these tools. If you can only have one, what's really nice about Facebook is the free marketing. That when you add a video to your Facebook on a Sunday, or when you go live to Facebook, it automatically tells everyone who likes your page, hey, St. David's is going live. Do you want to watch now? And that's nice. That's a nice feature. But then, of course, you probably know that with Facebook, it kind of tricks the non-Facebook users into thinking they need their own account. You don't have to, you just can scroll down that. But I know a lot of our folks get caught up on that page. They'll say, it said I needed an account, and they didn't. They can click off that screen, but they're tricky like that. But that's why, Facebook's ruining the world. So
All right.
Yeah.
Any other wrap-up thoughts, Colin, for us? I know it's.
No, if a question comes up or you want a little bit more information, of course, I'm limited in that I can't come to your church and set things up for you, but I love talking about this sort of thing. If you want, email me if you have further questions, find a time to chat on the phone. I would love to kind of go over some more things in depth. I got a lot of joy talking about this stuff, and I know many of you on the screen, and I love talking to you all anyway, so it'd be a gift to have a chance. So any other questions here? I'm going to put my email in the
Yeah, I was just going to ask you
chat.
to do that.
Yeah. Rector at stpeterslondonderry.org. Feel free to email me, and I'd love to chat more.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Colin, for your presentation, for your thoughtfulness and your time, and also just your consideration in terms of the range of both materials and settings. I think people will really, really get a lot of help out of that. Please know that our next digital classroom will be Monday, June 7th at 7 p.m. And the topic will be graphic design made easy. And we'll be exploring online tools that are available to make that happen. So thank you all for coming, and we will see you in June.